Well, let's go to Washington now. Ketavan Gorjestani is our correspondent and she's on the line. Ketavan, is there any chance, do you think, the Republicans will be able to break the deadlock today?
There's absolutely no assurance about that. But Kevin McCarthy's allies are saying that things are moving in the right direction. That said, it is still very early, and everyone agrees at least on one thing, is that there is likely not going to be a breakthrough, that while they are discussing and they are maybe seeing a little bit more eye to eye as the hours go by, a deal is not yet within a reach. And that is because it's not just one or two or three people that Kevin McCarthy needs to convince. It's 20 Republicans who have repeatedly voted against him. And maybe he will be able to convince a handful overnight, possibly, or in the coming hours, but he can only afford to lose 4 of those votes. And if you look within those 20 Republicans, there are at least 5 hard no's, known as the never Kevins, people who have come out and said basically that they will never vote for Kevin McCarthy. And 5 is too many votes for Kevin McCarthy to lose. That is, if everyone in the House of Representatives votes. So if Kevin McCarthy can manage to convince a few people not to vote and lower the threshold for that majority from 218 to, let's say, 215, for example, then maybe he has a path. But the day is still young. We're likely going to see more discussions. And the question really now, when the House comes back into session at noon local time, is whether they will go for a 7th round of vote, or will they try to adjourn again to give more time for these negotiations?
Well, let's talk about the 20 Republicans that you mentioned who are holding up this vote. I mean, what can you tell us about them? What are their views, and what are they trying to achieve right now?
Well, they are a part of what is known as the Freedom Caucus. This is the hard right of the Republican Party, members that are very much aligned with the former president, Donald Trump, and they have been a thorn in the side of the Republican Party for quite some time. But what they are trying to do here is get their power within the Republican Party to rise, their influence. That's what they're trying to do by holding out those votes. And they have been quite successful so far, because over the past few weeks, Kevin McCarthy has made quite a few concessions, but they said that those concessions weren't enough. And it looks like overnight, Kevin McCarthy made even more concessions to try to convince these Republicans to join his ranks and to support him as Speaker of the House. One of those concessions that could have a big impact going forward is what is known as the threshold for a motion to vacate. That's basically how you can call a vote to remove a sitting speaker. And it seems that Kevin McCarthy may have agreed to lower that threshold to 1 vote. That means any one member of the House of Representatives at any time can call a vote on the House floor to remove a Speaker of the House. That's a really big deal. Other concessions that he may have made is to give some seats to these members of the Freedom Caucus in some of the most powerful committees, like the House Rules Committee, that basically decides how the House is run and has a big say in what legislation actually makes it to the floor. He also has made concessions on what sort of bills will likely get a vote on the floor. For example, about border security, about possible term limits for members of the House. So Kevin McCarthy is really giving away a lot. The question is that enough for these 20 Republicans, or is there more there? Is there a personal aspect to that? For some of these 20, there is definitely a personal aspect. They simply do not want Kevin McCarthy.